So I'm glad he saw that. Today we're going to be talking about this paper that came out very recently, August 1st, 2020. My box got screwed up there, but that's okay. Is when this got published online, so it's brand spanking new. And it was this study that a lot of these researchers who are kind of well renowned in this running space, Rich Willie, he's a PT as well, two of those guys, Christopher Napier. PTs, these guys are PhDs, run coaches, so they know their stuff. But basically, it's talking about the study's called Moving Beyond Weekly Distance, Optimizing the Quantification of Training Load in Runners. Okay, so this study, it's kind of like a review paper type thing, but they basically are talking about how it is extremely outdated kind of and almost useless to use weekly distance alone for tracking training load and also trying to mitigate the risk for injury, right? Risk for injury is so high. About 80% of all runners get injured every year. And so if we can intervene in any way, shape, or form in that capacity, that's huge because just so many runners get injured every year. There have been studies where they show the number one reason why folks get injured is because of training errors, and that's going to be the most common reason. So doing too much too soon is just one simple kind of factor in that, but a lot of what people don't realize are these other factors that allow somebody to do too much. Like what exactly is too much? What determines what leads to it being too much? There's a bunch of factors, from the biopsychosocial approach, like how well your stress is managed, how well you're sleeping, all the way to how many miles per week you're running. These are all just individual variables, and they ultimately need to be looked at as a whole, right? If we take just one of these variables like weekly distance, then that's not going to tell us a whole ton. Anyway, so here's just a quote from the conclusions that it's like in the abstract, but it gives you a good idea of what we're going to be talking about here. So, it may be difficult to change the running culture's obsession with weekly distance, but advanced and emerging methods to quantify running training can improve training monitoring and injury risk stratification. If you guys have questions as I'm going, please leave a comment, leave a question. Another thing is, the more comments I get, the more likes and stuff like that, the more people are going to see this and the more people it's going to help. So let me know if you're watching this live, just say, hey, team live. If you're watching this on the replay, just say, hey, watching it on the replay or team replay. Let me know you're here. Just say, hey, you can just comment, hi, AJ. All of that literally helps the Facebook algorithm get this video to more people. So please do that. Let's go to the next slide. So why is solely relying on running distance a problem? As I was kind of leading to before, distance is this single sole metric that tells us honestly very little about what you're running and what your training is doing. To help you guys better to help you guys better understand the factors that all affect training load, we can break them down into this like internal versus external factors, and this is kind of what the study talks about. We'll go into this a little bit. And this is basically the one big relationship that I'm gonna bring forward from the study. You guys can read, if anybody wants the full text to that study, just comment below full text or something like that, and I will direct message you the PDF full text, because I think you have to pay for this article. If at any time you guys lose me, by the way, just let me know. I've had some technical difficulties the last few times I've done this. I did check my speed and my internet speed and everything before I started. So, but just let me know. I am watching on my phone not on Wi-Fi, just in case I lose my Wi-Fi, because I have had issues with that. Okay, so internal factors are going to be things like these physiological or psychological factors, right? So. And these are going to affect our stress responses in the body. These things are subjective, they're less measurable. And then we have external factors that we have to obviously pay attention to. So these are factors that are mechanical in nature, and they affect our tissues directly. These are the ones that people are way more just, I guess, prioritizing. And mainly a lot of the time it's because they're more objective, and which means they're more measurable. So let's break those down a little bit more. What are these internal and external loads? What are these variables? Just to give you a better idea of what they are. So your psychological state, your energy availability, how rested you are, how you feel. Those are going to be like your internal loads, and those, like how much you're sleeping and is affecting all of your hormone balance and your ability to recover and all these types of things. And those are extremely important. And then we have external loads like your distance and your pace and the amount of ascent or descent, the terrain you're on, time, altitude, etc. Karen Peterson's watching. I'm just going to wave to you. What's up? I don't know why it doesn't show everybody on my phone who's watching, but I try to give a shout out to whoever's watching. Whoever it shows me is watching. So moving on, what do people prioritize? Whenever you're hearing like runners chatting about, oh, like how many miles per week you're running, or like how many miles are you running on Wednesday, and all this stuff, they think about those external factors, or like where you're running, or how much or this and all this stuff, and like how are you tracking your training? Everybody's just concerned with these like objective external factors, but the reality is that these almost ignored kind of internal factors, how we feel and how our body's performing with those external factors, is huge, super important. So those are not real numbers, by the way. I mean, I'm just like guessing 95% of people are going to prioritize their those like objective numbers of their runs rather than some of these more subjective notes that I'm going to talk about in detail in a little bit. Julie's watching. What's up, Julie? Okay, moving on. So what are some better ways to monitor both internal and external factors? Okay, so combining physically what we're doing with how we subjectively feel, which is ultimately your performance, right? How do we gauge that? How can we monitor that? And so the study talks about RPE, and this is something that I definitely use a whole ton. Whenever I take on a new run coaching client, day one, we're trying to, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but we're trying to shift them away from using mileage for everything, like programming all their runs for miles. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, just so you know, I'm not going to be telling you to run 6 miles on Monday. I'm going to be telling you to run a certain effort level, or RPE, rating of perceived exertion, for a certain amount of time. And that's going to cover so many more factors than just mileage. Birchman's watching. What's up, Ryan? So rating of perceived exertion is highly underrated, super underutilized. I was very impressed with Strava recently. They have the sliding scale now. When you edit your run, you can actually it's basically like a rating of perceived exertion scale. And so it's like, how did you feel? This was very hard. And it has descriptors, which is great. Like that is probably the best feature that Strava has come out with in a while in terms of monitoring your training. I don't know if they've actually seen it through with, I want to see more of their analysis side of things, of taking your RPE, giving you, and they do have the suffer score and some other things, but which I honestly don't know their equation for the suffer score and stuff, but we're going to be talking about similar equations today. So basically, rating of perceived exertion, or RPE, is this combination of the internal factors, or how we feel, in combination with what did we physically do from an objective training perspective. Okay, and so what I actually do with my coaching clients is I have this. I made this. It's based. It is not exactly translatable to the masses of running with every distance and every terrain. Like this is mainly for. I work with mostly longer distance runners and trail trail and ultra runners. So these are effort descriptors that I make it even more simple. If I am programming a run for one of my athletes, it will say, and if one of my athletes is watching, you can confirm this and say like, he's lying or he's telling the truth. I don't say, like I said before, run a certain amount of miles. at a certain whatever pace. Like, yeah, I don't say run this many miles at this pace, because that's what you see a lot of. A lot of these training plans will say that, and a lot of people who I know are coached by other people, and different strokes for different folks. But they'll say, run 5 miles at like 8:30 pace or something like that. Whereas I'm going to be saying, I'm going to be doing an analysis or a max testing with my athletes to know kind of approximately what percentage of their heart rate may correlate with a certain rating of perceived exertion. I'll explain that on the next slide. But it'll say, like, on Wednesday, I want you to do 60 minutes easy. And they know that easy means a very comfortable kind of forever pace that you can easily tell a joke or story while working. If they are somebody who's using heart rate, preferably a heart rate strap, since these watches, the optical heart rate sensors, have not been very consistent. But they should approximately be able to check in with themselves, and they might be around 50 to 60% of their max heart rate. But that's going to be variable on a ton of different factors there. I think I did a video a while ago on heart rate variability, and I do have a blog on that. So if you want that blog, just say heart rate variability in the comments. Anyway, that's how and we're going to encompass so many more factors, right? So here's another example here. It's like, if you are training for a mountain race, or you just like trail running or whatever, if you, on your training plan, it says go run 6 miles on Wednesday, and you do that up at Horsetooth or on Towers Road or something like that, 6 miles is going to take you it could take you like an hour and 15, hour and a half. But if you do those same 6 miles on flat bike trails in town, that may only take you like 45 minutes or something like that. So, and those are completely different stimuli. So it just encompasses so much more to be able to use RPE. So anyway, you guys, if you want this, like a link to the effort descriptors, or if you want me to send you this for reference, just type in the comments below effort descriptors. I'm going to say hey real quick to Victor and Chad Hoffman. How's it going, guys? If anybody has questions, please comment below. Okay, guys. So this is what I was talking about that I do with my run coaching clients. The first time we work together, day one, we do an onboarding session, and part of that onboarding session is a maximum test on the treadmill. The goal is to try and get maximum heart rate, but we're ultimately going until failure. Just to describe what the protocol I use really quickly is, we do 2-minute stages. I first ask them what their approximate 5K pace is, and we want to hit that 5K pace at stage 4. And then we keep that pace consistent as we keep going, and then we increase the incline by 1% for every stage after that. We gather their heart rate at every stage and their RPE. I will flash in front of them their RPE, and we'll get that number as well. And then we kind of try to correlate those numbers together towards the end and make sure that the number one take-home message value that comes out of this this maximum testing is not the heart rate data. It's not the heart rate numbers. It is more so I want my athlete to have an accurate representation of what the true full RPE scale feels like. Okay? You may think, before you really challenge yourself and think about it, you may think that you're at like a 6 out of 10 RPE, but maybe we've run you through the full spectrum on a max treadmill test, and that 6 out of 10 was really an 8. Okay, this happens a lot. So I have had maybe like 2, maybe 3 coaching clients that have actually lined up their numbers very well in terms of correlating it with their overall effort. So the treadmill test, you can use this protocol. Another way that you can do this is by hey, what's up, Justin? Justin and Carrie's here. is you can do it in a field test too. You can do like a warm up, as you see. I think you can see my mouse here. You could do a warm up, and then I was doing this on the North Dam Hill. So that hill on the north side of Centennial along the reservoir. If you're heading southbound up that first huge hill from the north, that is approximately a 3 to 4 minute effort depending on your fitness. And it's just like a really good, like you can do intervals on that. So what I recommend people doing, hey, Diego. Diego is somebody who, actually, these are Diego's numbers here up. These are Diego's, this is from his heart rate test. So he was actually somebody who he did very well with gauging his RPE. This looks pretty linear here. It's when people start, like a lot of times, we'll see people do 2, 4, 3 or 5, 6, and then they go like 9, 10, right? They do that jump, that huge jump. But Diego had really good like insight and interoception, I guess is the word, of how he felt and that full spectrum of like that 0 to 10 difficulty scale. But anyway, so a field test is something I don't normally do with my run coaching clients, but you can do it. I got a higher heart rate, maximum heart rate on my field test than I did on my treadmill test, but the effort numbers were like, I definitely got to a 10 out of 10 on both tests in terms of an RPE. So it just depends on the athlete. Anyway, so you do like a warm up that's maybe like 10 to 20 minutes long, and then you can do 2 to 3 hill repeats. You can do the first one at like 60% effort, and the second one, this is not exactly what I did, but what I would recommend is you do the first hill repeat at like 60 to 70% of your max. You do the second one at like 70 to 80% of your max, and then you go for a full max heart rate on the third one, and you aim to hit your maximum failure point at approximately 3/4 of the way up the hill, just so you have that buffer zone. But that's another way that you can do this. It's just that when you don't have the luxury of being on a treadmill and like forcing yourself to keep going, and also have like a visual, like on a treadmill, you can have a piece of paper in front of you. That's your rating of perceived exertion numbers to reference. But anyway, so that's what I do. I spent too long on that slide, I think. So let's take it to the next level. RPE is what we're currently talking about. It's how we currently feel for current moment in time. Sorry for that repeat. And then there's session RPE, which this is how we felt for an entire workout. And that's the magic number right there is session RPE. And so what is session RPE? Session RPE is the RPE for the entire session multiplied by the duration of that session. So here's a practical example of how you'd use that. A runner does a fartlek run on trails. Then the duration of that run ended up being 62 minutes. The runner then rates the run overall, a difficulty level of 7 out of 10 RPE. Then we can do simple math to figure out that 7 RPE times 62 minutes gives us 434. AU just stands for arbitrary units. We don't really have units for that, but you don't have to, we just call it 434. So let's just say this runner has been doing this for a while. They've been tracking their session RPEs. This runner's current average weekly session RPE sum, or their like allowance for the week, is approximately 1,200. This run, having 434 units, would account for approximately 36% of their weekly training load, okay? So that could be something you keep track of, right? And then you look back and you're like, you can accurately have a way better picture and representation of the training load in general, and not just mileage. Like I said, mileage is just one single variable. Anyway, moving on. So let's shift the mindset a little bit. Where to start? You don't have to like do everything I just said. There are some gung-ho people in here who if you want to do that, go for it. If you want to pay me to put you through the maximum treadmill testing, like that's totally fine too. Just reach out. But like this is something you can do on your own, and you can do the max heart rate testing, max treadmill testing, and you can accurately gauge what an RPE scale should feel like for you. And then you can apply that by, instead of saying on Monday, I'm going to run 5 miles, you can say on Monday, I'm going to run 45 minutes at a 4 to 5 RPE, or an easy to endurance pace. Okay. That's how you can shift. And now, don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, I mean, there's like that satisfaction of like being able, looking at your week, and how many miles you ran that week, and how much vert you climbed that week, and all that stuff. But you can look at those numbers still. But you don't have to gauge your training and where your training needs to go, and how overloaded or underloaded you potentially are by those numbers, because you're not going to be able to do that. That's where that session RPE number would come in instead. So that's just my advice for you guys. Is this the last slide? Yeah. So, I mean, that's the very first thing that you can try. If you want to use those effort, make it even simpler and take a scale, a RPE scale of 1 to 10, and turn it into 5 descriptors like I do with my coaching clients. You know, we do easy, endurance, tempo, hard, and max. Those are, you know, so then it's making it even easier, and it's taking this 10-point scale and making it a 5-point scale. And so on any given day, you know, it allows you to perform within how you're feeling, rather than what you're supposed to do. And that's the biggest issue that I see with people doing these standardized training programs and even coaching themselves, is that they have this number they need to meet, whether it's a mileage or a vert or number or something like, and they'll do it at all costs. And hey, Michelle's watching again. They'll hit this number at all costs. So like, oh, I'm supposed to run, 20 miles today. What that number is so arbitrary. Why don't we say you're going to run at a certain effort level for a certain amount of time, and then you can shift all of the other variables of how you're running, your pace and all that stuff, to stay within your effort. Because no matter what technology is out right now, and power meters are probably like the most beneficial tool for cyclists, but for runners, those power meters are like garbage, because there's way too many variables. There's more variables that we can even fathom. And guess what? We're all endowed with basically a calculator that's going to calculate all of these variables that we can't even comprehend, and it's called our brain in our nervous system. And so running by effort is going to be a representation of where your brain feels like you need to be in terms of your work that day. And your brain is synthesizing all of these factors: how much you slept and what you ate, and the thing your wife said to you last night before you went to bed, and and how many miles you ran in the last day, week, month, year, and all that stuff. It's going to be detecting how much muscle damage you have, and how much nervous system, central nervous system fatigue you have. And so it's just so much more comprehensive. So anyway, if anybody has questions, if anybody wants to, like I said, if you want the study full text, just say full text in the comments. If you want the effort descriptor scale that I can send you, just type effort descriptors in the comments. If you have any other questions, even in the replay, I can get back to you later. I think that's it. And then, if anybody wants to work with me or ask me questions or anything like that, you know where to find me. You can message me through Facebook, physical therapy or coaching. So anyway, have a great day, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Take care.